Welcome back and welcome to a very special episode of the Blue Ridge Bonfire. We have recently moved just up the hill, but we moved nonetheless to a new recording space. And when I say recently, I mean this morning, hence the uncovered plastic folding table and the same camp chairs that we know and love. Don't know how you feel about them. So, Matt, what are we going to talk about today? What are we going to christen the new studio space with?
So we're going to talk about 5 overlanding tips for your vehicle.
Yeah.
Vehicle build, vehicle thinking, stuff like that.
Yeah, kind of like to get your dream rig situation going.
Dream rig. That was the word I was looking for.
Yeah.
Dream rig.
Well, we come at this from probably maybe a slightly different like headspace than some other folks. Like, I mean, you could buy some pre-built, overinflated, whatever. But yeah, I think Logan, one of yours is probably a really good place to start. So yeah, tell us what's the first tip for you for like you building out your rig?
Well, since I haven't really built a rig, that was, we were just talking about this, and I was having a hard time thinking of things. But realistically, I think my tip would be start with what you do have, and then figure out what you need. Because I've got a 2-wheel drive SUV, just front wheel drive SUV, but that doesn't mean I can't do road trips. I can, but I do all that stuff. So just kind of committing to my wife and I drove to Florida and then Ohio, just stayed in the car and figuring out what I needed to be comfortable, which we'll talk a little bit about that. But what do you need at the most basic place to sleep, some way to get some food, whatever, and then just like hit the road. And when I got back, I had a list of things that I would
You'd like to improve on.
that I want to improve on, or when I buy a new vehicle, this is why I would go that way.
Yeah.
So basically, it's start with what you got.
Start with what you got,
and then figure it out from there.
I think you can learn a lot about what you actually will want and what's actually worth your money if you.
Once you've done it. Once you get some time out. More time out is always better. And the reality is if you can get more time out for less money, you're better off anyway.
Yeah. And that reminds me kind of the model from backpacking that I'm sure you're familiar with is like, like talk about, think about what you actually did use. And outside of things like a first aid kit, and maybe, some sort of SOS beacon situation, like if you don't use it after 1, 2, maybe 3 trips, don't carry it anymore, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I kind of apply that. That's kind of the way my mind works, though. I have people ask about video stuff. What do I need to get?
Yeah.
What do I need to get? Where do I start? And I always say, you have to have a camera. In my opinion, you can kind of do it with an iPhone at this point, but you need a camera, and then don't get something else until you know why you need it.
No.
Right.
Like you're shooting, you're like, it's too dark. Okay, well now let's look at lights. Okay,
what's going to actually make you better?
Yeah.
Make the experience better, make the video better, make the whatever better.
Do the most you can with what you got before you invest more.
100%. Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I think that that probably segues into my big one is like be honest about where you plan on going and what you need. My truck's here, front and rear lock from the factory. That's kind of my like OS parachute, having something that capable. But I'm rolling on 33 aggressive all-terrains, and that's kind of the situation I've been doing for years. Is mid-size pickup, a couple of things like upfitted on it. Like mostly for me, I want to be comfortable, like sleeping, quick deployment. But in terms of like, I'm not running 40s. I don't have like crazy travel, stuff like that, because I'm rarely getting off anything much more than a old forest road or, like one of our local like trails, which are still all, on public land. So they're not like super crazy, like rock crawling situations like that. Like I'm not at the off-road park.
Plus a huge portion of your vehicle is to get places to do insert whatever, whether that's bike or fish or whatever.
Yeah.
So it's like, I think that's another thing to think about is like, what are you just camping, or is it the actual driving piece, or is it, are you using the vehicle to do other things? And I think, that's a key component. I mean, like for me, it's, how much can it haul? How much can it tow? Those are things that I look at pretty seriously, because that vehicle's it has a life outside of camping and traveling or whatever. And does it check those boxes? And then I go down the list of things that I need for things that I want for my actual overland travel or my travel on that perspective. And I have to check the boxes that it's going to need every day. And like I said, to your point, it's like, if 80% of the time you're traveling and camping and fishing, well, you're not in the woods in the deep water in Vermont, or you're not at Windrock in Kentucky or Tennessee, or where, I guess, does Windrock cover
No,
Kentucky too?
that's Tennessee. Yeah, yeah. I don't think it actually goes over the border.
Oh, it doesn't go over the border.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, no, 100%. And like my old truck, like I definitely had it in some places on 33s, with a couple inch lift and had a bumper and sliders on that one, but like where, you know, probably was right up to his pay grade. We
Yeah.
weren't. I didn't quite cash any checks that the Tacoma couldn't back, but you can still get into some fun stuff. But yeah, I'm not out there doing that stuff all the time, and I don't want to roll around on.
And the
Th-
other question is like if you're doing it because you want to challenge your ability to drive, right?
Mhm.
And like I appreciate that. Like I enjoy that phase of it and have enjoyed it over the years too. It's like on 33s or 35s or whatever, like
Yeah.
you can challenge you can test your skill set
Right.
just as easy on 33s or 35s as you can on 40s or 50s or 44s or whatever, or 37s. And not that 37s aren't cool and all, but
Yeah.
at the same time, you don't actually need that to go out and challenge yourself, and you don't need that to get to most of the places that, at least most of the places we end up going to. Now, again, I think that's a decision you have to make. What am I doing it for?
Yeah.
Am I doing it to challenge my driving? Am I doing it to challenge my equipment? Am I doing it to get places that, am I going to bang around in Moab
Yeah.
most of the time? Well, that's a different conversation.
Yeah,
That's, that's not really where we're at, at least for me, it's, I'm going to do Engineers Pass, and I'm going to do
Yeah.
things like that. I'm going to do more travel related stuff, and that have a piece to it, whether that's paddling someplace or doing something else. It's like I need to get here. I need to be comfortable when I get there. I don't want the trip to suck,
Yeah.
and then I want to be able to do the other pieces.
Yeah, and I think for me, there's been a few cases. Like I was recently in a different truck that was on 35s and dropped into a campsite with Steve and Josh, Gobi Recon and DV Nomads, and actually had that thought was like, oh, if I was in my truck, I would have dropped down into this hole a lot slower and probably with a spotter. Like it,
Yeah.
like it may have been an extended stay campsite really quickly.
Yeah.
But yeah, like as long as you're aware of that and kind of going back to one of the rougher trails I ever did with the Tacoma solo, especially, I got out of that truck 40 times in 10 miles.
Yeah,
You know?
I'm prone to getting out a lot anyway.
Yeah, no, and it was just like it's worth 15 seconds. To go, oh, okay,
Yeah.
instead of getting in trouble because that would have been like really in trouble.
Really in trouble. Yeah, no, it doesn't matter. I'm prone to getting out and walking and seeing what's in front of me, and do I have a place I can turn back if I need to? And it just takes me longer.
100%. Like the situation which I think we talked about where we got the guy out of the mud hole where he'd broken through the ice, my buddy and I a couple weeks ago. I had rolled up to that mud hole an hour earlier, kind of in a hurry to take care of the situation, but still like, oh, got out, grabbed a stick, poke, poke, poke.
Yeah.
That's when I learned one side was 8 inches deep.
And the other side was not.
An hour later, we're back there, and this dude walks up and was like, "Hey man, I'm real stuck." And I was like, "How?" I looked at Houston, was like, "I don't know, I don't understand." Walk over the little hill, and he is in, broke through the ice, and it was 30 inches deep on the other side.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, but not taking the time to
Right,
get out
yeah,
and check, and then being out of his depth.
Yeah.
I think that kind of stuff happens to people quick, and like I said, that could be just going to bike someplace.
Yeah. No, 100%. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So what we got another one. We got 3 in.
Yeah. So I think for me, obviously we're kind of storage nerds, and I think Matt and I would both admit that by necessity, because I feel like I live in a constant state of chaos anyway.
Man, I do.
But at least in my truck, there may be some like random crap. Like right now, there's some like cleaning spray bottles that we really needed, and we bought them, and they still haven't been out of the truck after 3 days. But for a trip and kind of like for like necessity things, everything in its place and everything has a place. My system may not look particularly organized to folks, but like right now, I can tell you, back seat, driver's side under seat tray, road flares, and fire starters. Left side, guy lines for the awnings, tent stakes. There's like a little lantern, stuff like that. Underneath.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's again, we've talked about this a lot, but that's just sort of general being prepared for whatever's going on. And again, we've got a bunch of snow and ice here, and we're in the cold, and knowing that exists. My winter gear is
right. Yeah, like right now, actually, we've been doing some traveling quite a bit, like for the holidays and stuff. So I went ahead and just upgraded my winter bag to one of our duffel bags, and it's setting up vertically behind the center console, and it has long underwear, extra socks, gloves, hat, little Jetboil backpacker pantry and extra blanket and hot hands. So if Brandon and I were in there, and like,
And you got stranded.
yeah, we could just chill,
Yeah,
except
yeah.
for not be chilly. Yeah.
Right.
And
No, that's that. I think
yeah.
that's important, right? Like, I think, I think and for me at least, that whole side of it's important. I mean, I've been stranded on 77 or 70 before in
Yeah.
Colorado. Got off an exit and they just closed everything around me.
Yeah, yeah.
And
It can kind of going back. It can happen like that. Like,
yeah, no, that was at 10 o'clock at night
Yeah.
at a gas station.
matter of fact, it can happen in the amount of time being stranded can happen in the amount of time it takes for your Ford Raptor to lock you out. Buddy Houston found that recently, and same thing. Winter clothes bag was in my back seat, and I was like, dude, I got to go get a lockout kit. Here's a vest, a blanket, a hat.
Yeah.
Have fun.
Well, and that's I mean, I know in my truck behind the seat there's a pouch that's got extra gloves in it, an extra hat, not counting the gloves I've got on me.
Yeah.
In my pocket right now. My wool blanket's underneath there.
Yeah.
I've got an extra puffy just in case somebody needs it.
Yeah.
There's first aid kit. There's not as many road flares as you, but there's at least a road flare or two in my truck just in case I need to start a fire or burn the truck to the ground because I'm mad at it either way.
Yeah.
But I mean, I think having the stuff that you need day in and day out, if there's a problem, and then at the same time, that all having a home where you know where it's
Right.
at, where you don't have to
Yeah.
think about it. Geez, my tool, and going back to what you were saying, like the majority of my tools sit behind the passenger seat, back seat, underneath it,
Yeah.
behind the passenger seat. On the other side, in the middle is my air stuff. So if I've got a tire, I've got
Yeah.
a plug kit and some stuff like that in case I need it. And there's a blanket stuffed up underneath.
Yeah,
it.
I mean, kind of going back to that, how many times has my little compressor for the truck come in handy here at the shop with
All the time.
the tractor?
Yeah.
And it's in the case at the forward part of the bed with
Yeah.
some other kind of like, hope I never need them. Always want to have them gear.
Yeah.
So,
And I've got a strap and two soft shackles
yeah.
under the thing about what's underneath the seat. That's all underneath the seat,
Yeah.
kind of kitted in bags all together. So
Hmm.
when I'm done with it, it can go back there and I just know it lives there. Now, I may not be able to find a strap at home to save my life,
Yeah.
but I know I can go to the truck
Yeah.
and I can pull out two soft shackles and a strap. And I'm
Even the little things, like I keep a Sharpie, a pen, and a tire gauge in my visor organizer. And the other day I was at the house and was like, for some reason, I remember now, I really needed a black Sharpie for something.
yeah.
And was just like, couldn't find one. We've got a little pin holder on the side of the fridge. My
Yeah.
desk is all torn down right now. And I was like, oh, I'm just going to have the truck and grab it. And then the key is you go back out to the
put it
truck and
back.
replace it.
That's the one thing I'm better about is relative to my vehicle. I'm better about putting my stuff back in it because I'm just like, oh, this lives here.
Mhm.
Here's its hot spot all the time, and it never leaves. And
Yeah.
and then I'm like you said, I don't think about it near as much, and I think that's important. I mean, again, we might be gear queers. I get that, or
Yeah.
organization nerds. I think maybe is what you said was
Yeah.
probably a more elegant way to say it.
Yeah.
But the reality is, I mean, I think that's a huge piece is knowing where your gear is at, having the gear you need, and not, again, we talk about this all the time, but not just on trips.
Yeah. No.
It's like, Tuesday afternoon on the flipping freeway, driving down the highway, and all of a sudden you're snowed in.
Yeah.
And, no big deal. Pull the truck off,
Right.
get out your winter gear and have at it.
And like the truck blanket, for example,
Sorry.
we were just moving some stuff up here and saw a truck in saw a truck in the back of your saw a blanket in the back of your vehicle. Like
Yeah.
half the time, over half the time actually, like 80-90% of the time, the truck blanket hasn't helped me in a pinch, it's helped someone else, So
Yeah. Well, but I mean, even, it's just there. It's
Yeah.
one of those things that's just there and you don't have to worry about
if
it.
it
And I
gets
think-
much colder, I want to take mine into the office.
Right?
Like
Yeah.
No joke.
yeah.
That's right. I could wrap up in that Canadian.
Civil defense is
civil
yours?
defense.
Yeah.
Yeah. The Canadian civil
Yeah.
American pipe dream guy.
Americana Pipe Dream, yeah. I just got a new fleece from them. Some like British pullover fleece line, nylon shell. Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Man, their stuff goes so fast. Like if that's something, if you ever check them out, you can't peruse. Like you need to follow them on socials, and when you see something,
Right.
because it was like sold out like 6 hours later. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. What do we got?
What was that?
We've
That's
had
4.
we've had rung what you've brung, which is my favorite, incredibly grammatically incorrect phrase. Yeah, we've got everything in its place. Be honest about where you're going, what you're doing.
Yep.
Do we have We do.
No, I think we have.
We have a fourth.
Yeah. Short-term memory loss is real, and a real problem I have apparently. No. So we already like pregame on these.
Well,
so,
I mean, I think some of that's like when you talk about finding the vehicle, it's finding the vehicle that sort of fits the need. Like, what are you gonna again? Be real about what you're gonna do with it, but what does it need to do when it's in its off season or its off time or its daily use time?
Yeah.
Because most of us don't have a dedicated
right.
a dedicated
Trail rig and a daily
trail
driver,
rig, right?
yeah.
Like, so does it execute the things you need to do day in and day out? And then again, this is why the minivan it makes so much sense to me.
Matt, you had another one earlier. I'm trying to remember what it was. When we did a very quick 30,000 foot
Should have written these down.
sonic boom overview.
beforehand.
We need a whiteboard for
The
this.
great thing
or
is this is
something.
edited, so you can just make it look like we rolled right into it.
Well, you sure could.
If we roll into it. Okay. So we have
Just go, everything, place for everything. Be honest about where you're going, what you're doing.
vehicle selection.
Vehicle selection.
Like look at the vehicle selection. So if we're going back to it's 5 tips for your ultimate kind of overland rig, I think you're right. Like looking at the future proofing thing makes a lot of sense as far as thinking about the gear you're going to need down the road and whether it makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Like, so many times you buy a piece of equipment that isn't exactly what you needed, or it doesn't
Buy
get you
once,
all the
cry
way
once,
to the
kinda?
end. Right. It
Yeah,
doesn't get you
yeah.
all the way to the end. And then you end up selling that, or you've got it buried in the garage.
Yeah.
And now you're going out and buying another piece of gear
Yeah.
that is actually what you needed or what you wanted. I mean, I think you see that in sleeping bags all the time.
Your timeout. I think is all good stuff. We'll do a more like a hard roll in. I think that's good. Like
The problem is I don't have no idea what I just said.
No, I'll lead you through it. No. All right, so here we go. Ready? And
Yeah.
Matt, so you have a good one, kind of like philosophy, like all gear. We were just talking this down in the shop. So
Yeah, I mean, I we talk about buy once, cry once. I guess that would be the adage. But so many people you see get gear and they sort of get the minimum piece getting in, and they don't future proof that. They don't future proof that thinking.
Yeah.
And it's like, so many people will buy a sleeping bag that isn't really enough.
right.
It's like, if you're not going to have 2 bags, have one that's a little more than you need.
Yeah.
Things like that.
You
So
can
it's
always sleep in your underwear and then bundled up.
yeah, and you can always leave it as a blanket.
Right. Yeah.
You can always open it up and use it as a blanket. You don't have to crawl into it, but you want something that if it's crappy, you can crawl into. So when you're looking at, I think stoves and stuff like that, I think, buying something that you're not going to have to replace.
Yeah.
That's a kicker, right? Like,
I think this plays well off Logan's of like, you go out and you do, and then you figure out what you need. And
Yeah.
then like if it's going to be integral to your success and even that's just the fact of like right now, if you want to get out, you're going to need like a 15-degree bag minimum.
yeah.
Like, if you want to go this time of year, even here in Virginia, buy a good winter bag,
Yeah. And I think just getting the piece of kit that you can use over a lifetime or over a longer period of time.
Mhm.
That's the key, right? So you're just not constantly messing around with upgrading and stuff like that. You just get done with it.
And
What are some of those things that you would say, sleeping bag, like those sorts of things, obviously, but if you're talking about building like an overlanding rig, what
I mean,
piece of
so,
gear would you
like-
start with that, or like,
Everything from stoves to air compressors to there's a bunch of times I've had some form of portable air that wasn't what I really needed. I've had tools in my truck that I was just like, what in the world am I doing at the end of the day? I've had even going back to like saws and knives and stuff like that. Like just I'd rather have going back to like knives, a good solid fixed blade knife that I can start a fire with, that I can actually use whatever that lives in my truck, as opposed to an inexpensive folder. We both have knives.
right.
I know mine's going to work tomorrow.
Right. Yeah, the saw thing. I actually recently had a conversation with somebody online about silky saws I had posted mine, and he was like, how big will that thing actually cut? And I was like, listen, it's on a backpacking trip one time in a like highly, a very popular site, and the rule in that area is anything that's down you can use, and there was nothing within 100 yards of our campsite that was like pick it up and carryable, but there was a tree down like 15 yards off the site. And one of the guys, the same saw I have, just the older version, had a silky big boy. And I think that thing has like a 16-inch blade, and we cut 2 rounds off of like a 12-inch diameter tree.
Yeah.
So once we got a small fire going, we literally just like, started
Drop
a
those
fire
two
and
in
put
there.
those on each side, and it was cold. So, we had a fire till, midnight or
Yeah.
whatever until we finally decided to go to bed. And you look at a silky saw and you're like, oh, I can buy one of these at Harbor Freight for $3.50,
Right.
or even Lowe's, they're $20. Why is this one 60 or 70? And it's like, until you use like a really good saw, you don't understand, because the silky rips through stuff. Yeah.
Right. And I think, people do that with cameras. People do all kinds of stuff. I mean, I think figuring out what you're, where you're going, get a feel for, like you were saying, get a feel for using something.
Yeah.
And then going, oh, wait, this is going to make me better.
Mm.
This is going to make my trip better. This is going to make life easier. If I have a problem, this is going to be more reliable. And then how do I, if I'm going to do this more, right?
Mm-hmm.
If I'm going to continue this, or I'm enjoying it, right? I'm enjoying, whether it's the fishing, whether it's the whatever, I mean, you end up with, like me, I have 5 different fly rods. 3 of them suck. Like 2 of them are pretty good fly rods. I don't ever take the other 3.
All right, yeah.
Had I just like bought one and then upgraded to the good ones, figured out how much I was going to fish, what I was going to do with it, and not that I fish that much anymore, but like,
you really just need 2.
Yeah, no, but
a little one for the guys up there and a big one for the guys down there. Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, at that point, it's like you get two decent fly rods and you're done.
Yeah.
And I think so many people end up with like me, where I've got 5 of them, or whatever that is. I mean, I think you do that with all kinds of gear. Do the camera gear. I watch people.
And
with
I think it's all
I do it with camera gear all the time.
Yeah.
I buy something, I'm like, damn, this is almost what I would have liked to have had, and then I end up, wishing I had it and not being able to make the jump.
Yeah.
Or should have just made the jump at the beginning.
Totally.
It's such a delicate dance too, right? Because like fly rods, for example, like for a long time, I was using like, first off, I was pretty rough on fly rods for a long time. I had to learn, especially the lighter weight ones. But I was doing like, eagle claw feather lights, which you can cast a fly with those, but then had a buddy picked up a vintage St. Croix, really cheap, and I was like, oh,
this is the fly rod.
Like, I'm not a great fly caster, but I'm a better fly caster with this. For sure I had advanced enough that the rod was holding me back. Again, lessons learned. Like, haven't broken that one in a truck door. I think I broke 3 St. Croix between my camper shell and my truck doors. Or 3 eagle claws. But it's like a delicate dance of like, now I'm in like a pretty decent mid-range rod, and there's definitely way more expensive ones, but I don't go enough. Like the cost per use is big for me, and also like I'm probably not like good enough to justify that next jump.
Next big leap. Yeah.
Kind of like with camp stoves, we like to keep our cooking pretty simple, and we have some gadgets and stuff. I think camp cooking is like the place it's easiest to go overboard, because you there's all these little things out there,
Yeah. No, that's a good point.
But we've been running, we use the shop stove here some, but we've been running the same Coleman that I've had since college. Just recently upgraded my like literally 15-year-old Primus jet boil type thing.
Yeah.
And for most things we can get it done with that. Like, we're not needing like this, crazy kitchen setup.
Yeah. And
I think the key thing is like the ultimate Overland vehicle, or the ultimate Overland platform, is the one that you get out and use.
Exactly. Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's like, if you're not getting it out and using it, if you're not being able to use it for what you intended, then it's pointless. Right.
Yeah.
Like, that's the kicker. So if that means, you pare back on some stuff, you buy a little bit of higher end kit.
Yeah.
And the other thing is that I think you can figure a lot of that stuff out as you're traveling with somebody.
Mm.
So like, if you get a couple people that you can go with, that maybe have spent more time in the woods, you can go, oh wait, that's handy.
Hands and eyes on it.
Yeah. And pare it down to just the things that you're actually using.
Yeah.
And then buy the higher end of that stuff.
Yeah.
And that's like back to my first point. I guess if you don't have any starting point, then maybe my first tip isn't as helpful. But for me is like, I have backpacking stuff. So I take my backpacking stove, and pretty quickly you go, well, now that I'm in a car and I can take more stuff.
Right.
I'd like
I
to
could have a single burner and a frying pan might be nice.
Right.
Yeah. And then you figure out,
but I didn't have to buy the first,
Right. And this frying pan happens to be way handier than the rest of them to pack. And this stove is easier to store. And this, and it runs on better fuel, or it runs on fuel that I want to think about relative to altitude or
Yeah.
cold weather or whatever,
Well,
so
just the
you're
guy
not
we had
at
in the shop the other
12,000 feet
day,
of propane wishing you were,
Joe, that's recently moved regionally here. He's out west. That we were talking to him about gear, and one of the things he was like, "Man, I held out forever." Was like an awning, and I think sometimes some people might see an awning and be like, "It's not 100% necessary." But he was talking about when he was in the PNW. He's like, "Man, there were so many times I was just stuck in the truck because it was just drizzly, gross enough. You didn't want to be out. But if
Yeah.
I'd had this awning, he's like, that expands my like living space
right.
significantly. And this dude spends a lot of time out. Like he's full timing it. And it's like, yeah, like does everybody need an awning? No, I'm not going to say that. But like, if you're out in a place where you're going to really want some shade, or you're out where some like outdoor living space would be handy, you don't have to have an awning that's thousands of dollars, but having something that that allows you to get out of your tent, if you're sleeping in the back, allows you to get out of
Yeah.
that. Like that can go a long ways. Yeah.
No, 100%.
Yeah.
And interested, like he works for the Forest Service, right? Isn't
Yeah.
that-
Or National Park Service.
National
yeah.
Park Service. Yeah, it works for the National Park Service. So he basically travels from park to park working on projects
Yeah. Like
and then lives out of his truck.
trail building specialist. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Which is, again, he has a different set of resources. It's interesting, like his, and I will have a video on this, I think, but his top 3 pieces of gear.
Well, I think
Like-
the best one was the top one. He was preaching the gospel of the Western mountaineering down booties.
Western mountaineering down booties was
Yeah.
well first, but interestingly enough, gas powered chainsaw was second.
Yeah.
Like he was really quick to gas powered chainsaw. And based on what he does
Yeah.
and where he's going, he's right. Gas powered chainsaw is probably pretty high priority.
Yeah.
Most of us that are bumming around the east, yeah, gas powered chainsaw is nice, and I take a chainsaw about everywhere I go. But
Yeah.
if I'm relatively local, it's going to be a 12-inch, DeWalt. If I'm
Yeah.
in bad weather, I think there's bad weather coming, like this time of the year where we're
Right,
getting
right.
a lot
A
of
little more
down limbs.
serious.
Then yeah, I've got a 20-inch steel.
Worth noting that that's to
20
get out of his
Husky.
driveway.
Me?
Yeah. Yeah.
There are a
In
number of
bad
days
weather.
this year
Yeah.
that I have needed a 20-inch steel to get out of my driveway. That is a pretty correct statement.
Matt has a lot of trees that are really looking to get down.
Yeah. They enjoy
Actually, I
falling.
think he has less trees because a lot of them has been successful.
I've
this year.
had a couple drop this year, a couple big ones drop
Yeah.
this year, and I took a couple out that were
Ready
going
to
to drop
strike.
next year. That I was
Yeah.
just like, I want to do this while I've
Yeah.
got. I've probably took 15 old rotted ones.
And you're on my own terms, you're coming down.
Yeah, old locust ones.
Yeah.
Took those down just recently, just because I knew I was going to have to deal with them in the driveway in the next 24 months.
Instead of
Yeah.
it being 15 minutes till 9. And
yeah, because they've been dead
Uh-huh.
and rotted for a long time, and they're, falling like crazy.
Yeah. And again, if you're in a place where the Forest Service, here we go. If you're in the Southwest where there aren't a lot of trees and your driveway isn't lined with a bunch of dead locusts, the
Right.
chainsaw may not be very high up on your list.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But anyway, I mean, I think thinking about that goes back to like hitting based on where you're going to be most of the time,
Yeah,
what you're doing,
100%.
and again, Southwest, you're probably not chainsaw doesn't rank high on your priority list as far as like pieces of equipment for that for that one vehicle that you're going to really put time in.
Yeah. So yeah, we're in a new space. It's probably going to change quickly. The next episodes are going to look exactly the same. Matter of fact, I'm willing to bet we'll be wearing the same clothes in the next episode in 2 weeks. But after that, we may be going through some different layouts, different situations. The podcast and some other stuff is going to be seeing some shifts. Matter of fact, I guess we technically have already dropped one video from our new space.
That's true.
We shot a reel yesterday. Yeah. Oh, that video isn't out yet. We've recorded one.
It will be out before this.
Before this, though. Yeah. But yeah, we're excited. This is going to give us some more flexibility. If you've ever joined us on the podcast or been here and been like, where's the podcast studio? We showed you behind the curtain and you were like, wow, yeah, this is way better than that.
This is the serious improvement.
Yeah.
Or should be a serious improvement
Yeah.
long term.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
we're
so
excited.
look forward to seeing what happens. I know that I'm looking forward to seeing what happens. I'm not
Yeah.
quite sure yet, but
Regular listeners that happen to be viewers, regular viewers, our YouTube crowd. Let us know what you think in a comment. This is not going to look the same after this next episode, but we'd love to get some feedback. And anything else? That was 5 tips for
what were those 5? Let's end with a recap. Can we remember?
Just get out there. Everything in its a place and a place for everything. Be honest about where you're going. in terms of like what you need in your vehicle, and then also vehicle selection. I think that, and
Yep.
then also, future proof / buy once, cry once. Everybody does that delicate dance. Now it's your turn.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
All right. What? We even stayed half-ass on topic.
Yeah.
Yeah, no.
That was crazy.
We're doing better in a better space.
Is that
Yeah.
what it is?
Yeah.
That's not going to last long.
I didn't say that. I just made a declarative statement about the last 40 minutes. Yeah. So yeah.
Okay.
But yeah, no, we'll be back a couple weeks. So thanks for watching, listening, like, subscribe, tell your friends, all that good stuff. We'll catch you in 2 weeks.